Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the BR 1.0 French light tank, the H39. I think a lot of people don't really get how tanks like the H39 work, the H35 and the H39. And I think a lot of that is because people don't really realize how to angle them properly, and I think a lot of people don't really realize how to position them. So the key with these vehicles, especially in a large map like this, is you need to A, be kind of aggressive, and B, be very aware of what's going on with the flow of the game in order to succeed. So one of the problems with playing a large map like this, especially the one that has as many hills, is because you're not a very mobile vehicle, which means it's really tough for you to kind of get into positions and flex around and deal with changing map situations, which means that in order to succeed, your map awareness and your awareness of how the flow of the game is going needs to be very, very, very good in order to make these tanks work and in order to be able to help your team win games. So, talking a little bit about the H39, you do have reasonably decent, okay-ish armor. It's around 40-ish millimeters thick when you're completely unangled, and if you're able to angle the tank, you can actually bring it up to around 55 to 60 millimeters effective everywhere in the tank, which is really nice. The way you do that is you want to angle the tank such that the front right-hand corner of the hull is facing the enemy. And you want to angle your tank really aggressively at like a pretty close to 40 or almost even 45 degree angle. The reason you do this is because the H39 has pretty much the same armor on the sides of the hull as it does on the front. That's part of why it's so slow, because it's a very heavy tank for its engine. You see me kind of struggling to get through these fences here. But the big thing you want to do with this tank when you're trying to deal with enemies is you want to really just angle the shit out of it. If you can angle this tank really, really well, then what that does is it really makes your armor a lot better. Whereas if you aren't angling your tank effectively and you're getting shot by things that can pen like 40 to 50 millimeters of armor, you just turn into a bunch of dead weight, and you really don't want that. So you're going to see me angling against a lot of people. Now, now we're capping C, and we have the enemy team is capping B, and we've already capped A. So I'm looking at this map situation, and I'm thinking, all right, so we have one tank at A, we have a lot of tanks at C, and we have a couple tanks at B. So my next goal is I want to try and get around and try and get into B and make sure that gets capped, because right now I'm worried about them taking A. So I'm thinking sort of holistically. When I'm thinking about how I want to win this game, I'm thinking about how do we win the entire map. I pause here to shoot at the BT5. So how do we win the game? We win the game by capping, obviously. Anyone knows that. Now, in a tank like the H39, you need to be especially aware of where you need to put yourself in order to help your team win. Because if you're not able to do that effectively, especially in something this slow, you're going to end up just being too late to the fight, too late to really impact anything, and that's really not where you want to be. So what I'm going to do here is just try and fight these guys for C. So right now they have tanks in around the C3 position, sort of at that kind of crossroads, right where I'm looking at right now, where that T60 is. They have tanks there, and what I want to do is eventually push into that location and kind of push them out. And then what I want to do is circle around behind B from their side of the map, and hopefully get into it, chase out any enemy tanks, and then turn around and hopefully fight off the enemies that are pushing in. Now, remember what I said about us having only one medium tank at A? This is exactly what I worried would happen. The enemy's now capping A. So what I want to do is get on B as soon as I can. Now, I actually am going to get a little distracted here, trying to get down this slope, but I'm going to get a little distracted. I notice there's a tank kind of, I think it's going to turn out to be, I haven't seen this replay in a little bit, but I think it's going to turn out to be some type of Panzer 35. Anyway, there's a light tank down right on the border between D3 and C3, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and flank them. Now, another thing with these low-tier French tanks is a lot of them have really pretty terrible guns, and so what you kind of need to do, in this instance it didn't really matter because that turned out to be an AC, which has very, very poor armor. But in a lot of situations with these low-tier French tanks, you want to kind of flank. If you get an enemy, you don't really necessarily want to engage them frontally, you want to try and get side shots into them. So I'm not too worried about this T60 penning me. Again, you'll notice that I'm angling my tank very aggressively, because at this kind of angle, there's no way that guy's going to pen me, ever, in a million years. So I'm not really too worried about him. What I'm going to do is just kind of push up through here. I want to go through that pass where he is and push into B. As I said, they have 2 caps, we have 1, so we need to get one of the cap circles as soon as we can. The best way to improve your win rate in arcade tank battles, or really in realistic and sim too, but I'm talking specifically arcade, the best way to improve your win rate and maximize your impact on games is to fight for the cap circles, and you need to do so really, really aggressively. because obviously that's how the game is won. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that. They try and go on these like crazy flanking adventures. I keep trying to knock down this tree. It's not going to work. But people like to try and go on these crazy flanking adventures going way around the edges of the map, and that really isn't helpful. You need to be fighting for the caps. So go into the positions around the cap circles, get yourself onto the cap circle if you can. I'm going to stop to shoot at these guys. The reason I'm stopping to shoot at this guy and not just trying to get into B is because we have to kill these guys before I can push into B, because otherwise they're just going to be shooting into my ass, and I don't really want that. Our points are ticking down, so we really need to get this situation dealt with, so I'm going to start to move up. Again, look at how I'm angling my tank. It's a little bit worse to angle it around the left corner than it is to angle it around the right front corner, just because you do have a kind of rounded cheek plate that people can penetrate if they aim well. But it's still a good idea, so I'm still doing it because it does make it really hard for them to actually pen me. So, okay, now I make a decision, right? I have two options. I could push into the enemy base and try and clean up some kills, or I can turn around and go for B. And what I'm going to choose to do is turn around and go to B, even though there are still tanks alive behind me. The reason I choose to do this is because I notice that my friendlies are kind of pushing into them, and I'm just kind of hoping that they're going to be able to, if not kill them, at least distract them long enough to cover my escape. So, what's actually going to happen is my allies are going to end up dying down there, but that's okay, because it's going to allow me to get up over here and get into B. There's a Panzer IV there who I'm a little worried about because he has potentially really strong heat, but he dies, so that's okay. So now I'm just going to charge into B. We're running low on cap points. I need to get onto this cap circle. I haven't seen any tanks. I have a key knee with me. I'm feeling reasonably confident that I can kind of just try and push into B. I also noticed that down behind me, that light tank is starting to push up. So I really need to get into B ASAP. If I hang around trying to make my push cautious, then what's going to happen is I'm just going to get shot in the ass. So I need to get into B as soon as I can. Okay, so my game plan right now is I want to get into B and then hopefully maybe flex around to A or go back and try and defend C. What I'm worried about is that light tank who I spotted down there is going to do what he just did, kill the Panzer II, and push into C. So we need to get B capped and then go back to defend C as soon as we can. So this is kind of a tricky situation, just because there's a lot of things happening in the game right now, and there's a lot of things that I need to do. Typically, if it comes down to when I'm thinking about trying to take a cap circle, I typically try to avoid just assuming that my friendlies will be able to take care of it, because usually they aren't able to do that. I'm going to take apart this T-26 now. And again, notice how I'm angling my tank. I'm trying to make it so it's hard for him to pen me. I think I could actually be going a little bit more aggressive with my angling here, but, well, he dies, so it's whatever. So what we're going to do is secure B, and then I'm immediately going to turn around and try and go back for C. Again, I think they're going to try and cap C. You'll notice that M3 who was down there did not get killed, which means he's going to be trying to go cap C, so we need to go deal with that. There's a BT5. So at this point, I think I actually make a mistake. Here's the mistake I make, and I want to just point this out because we all do make mistakes, and I think it's really important to understand the mistakes that we do make. So, C is being capped, but I'm getting all preoccupied with this BT5. I saw the BT5 pushing up, and I'm like, oh god, I need to stop and shoot at him. No, I need to start going to C. This wastes, I think, about like 20 seconds, I want to say, and that's 20 seconds that we could have really used. We will actually end up winning this game, spoiler alert, but me loitering here a little bit did not really help. So now I do stop. I think this is not a mistake because this guy is going to shoot my friendlies in the butt and I need to kill him. If I just ignore this guy and just try and run to C, then he's going to continue to shoot the key knee. The key knee actually does get set on fire, which is not really great, but we did what we could. He's going to put it out, and that's great. So now we got to go defend C. The enemy's capping, which is really not good. We need to deal with this cap now because we are low on tickets and we are going to lose pretty shortly. There's an M3A1, and at this point I have a decision to make. There's enemy tanks pushing in from their right spawn, and they also have capped C. So my decision at this point is, do I try and fight the enemy tanks at their spawn, or do I take my tank around and go cap C? Now, with this decision in mind, I need to think about a couple of things. First thing I need to think about, how fast is my tank? Am I going to be able to push into C in time to actually cap it? Or am I going to just run out of time running to C? The other thing I need to consider is, where's the enemy team? If I try and push into C, what are those light tanks going to do? They're just going to charge me and kill me anyway. So at this point, I'm thinking, all right, whatever of these decisions I make, I'm pretty likely to die. So what I need to be doing is trying to delay the enemy so that my Panzer II can get into C. So I decide I want to go fight these guys, even if it might kill me, just because me being there is going to distract them and hold them long enough for my friend to get into C. And that's the primary goal right now. Now, my friend is not actually going to get into C, unfortunately. Like I said, sometimes your allies are not going to be able to do the right thing. But in this instance, if I had tried to follow that guy, I'd be getting shot in the ass by this Panzer 35 right now. So I was really kind of constrained by what it can do. So I'm going to shoot this guy in the gunner. And now that his gunner's out, I'm going to turn my attention back to the Panzer 35. I don't want him to pen me, and I need to shut this guy down. And I'm going to ricochet. That was a really badly aimed shot, unfortunately. But I'm going to get shot in the gunner. So now I can't shoot back. So the M3 does actually get his gunner back really, really quickly, which I was not really expecting. But it's all going to be okay, because these guys are going to take a really long time to kill me. And meanwhile, our Panzer II is not capping C, which I needed him to do. Which kind of sucks. Luckily for us, our team is now capping A, which means we are potentially going to win this game. So I spawn back in my R35. I'm now going to try and push the C cap from the north. But if you look at the team lists, you'll notice that the enemy team is really low on spawns. They've got a lot of guys on... most of their team is dead, and they've got a lot of guys on 2 spawns, 2 deaths, which means that if they die, they're going to be dead permanently, and we're going to win the game. So at this point, even though the tickets look really bad, the game is pretty reasonably in our hands. Now, the Panzer II is now going to get on C, finally, and he's going to cap that zone out, which might not have been possible if we hadn't stayed behind to actually fight the enemies off. So, 2 broad takeaways from this game. The first broad takeaway is that when you're in a slow tank like an H39 that has reasonably decent armor and a pretty mediocre gun, the way you need to play it is aggressive but careful, and you need to be very cognizant of what's happening on the map and what you need to be doing with your tank. Even though you're very slow, you are still mobile enough to be able to have an impact if you plan out your moves carefully and are proactive with identifying what's going on and being able to push into those situations and being able to take cap circles and take map objectives. You're not a Hellcat where you can flex around really, really easily. You're a very slow tank. So it's really important to be able to be aware of the flow of the battle and keep track of what's actually going on. The second big takeaway is that sometimes you have to be cognizant of where the enemy team is and where you need to put your tank in order to allow your teammates to do things. And so the big decision that I made at the end of the game, at the end of my H39 playout, was I needed to decide between whether I was going to go back to try and actively put myself on C, or whether I was going to try and delay the enemy tanks from pushing into C. And so what I ended up doing was trying to delay, which I think was the correct decision in hindsight, because I would have just gotten shot and killed. So those are the 2 big takeaways from the game. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy this game and you did enjoy the commentary, please feel free to subscribe. And if you didn't, sounds like a personal problem. Anyway, stay classy. Catch you next time.